The Daily Dispatch national correspondent Kevin Williamson wrote a great article. I think the article was titled, let me find the title of that article. It was titled The Exotic Cat Eaters of Springfield, where he categorically destroyed J.D. Vance for knowingly lying about what's going on in Springfield, Ohio, about the cat eating, etc. And he came out with a conclusion that I think folks ought to hear. Because it's real, it's a demonization of people to make those who are otherwise not at their full potential, many times by choice. What's that choice? Having followed Donald Trump is one way of stagnating. But anyway, there are folks that they're feeling their own shortcomings. I want you to listen to Kevin, and then we'll take it on the other side.
Kevin, your new piece is incredible. You wrote that you're surprised that a guy that is basically this smart, that has the education that he has, would resort to these lies when he knows better. And that's what, every time I look at members of my former party that went to, Yale and Harvard and Stanford, all these, so I'm saying, wait, they could be doing so much as a conservative. They could be helping this country so much as a conservative. And instead, they follow Donald Trump around and spread his lies.
Yeah, Donald Trump being a serial liar is not exactly new, so I don't think we have to probably dwell on that too much. J.D. Vance being a serial liar is a relatively new development, so maybe we should talk about that some. What's really interesting to me about this is that, J.D. Vance wrote this very famous book called Hillbilly Elegy, and the hillbillies who moved to Ohio to work in the factories were actually a lot like these Haitians. They came from one of the poorest places in the Western Hemisphere. The locals complained that they didn't understand the local culture. They didn't speak the language. They didn't fit in very well, even down to the urban legends about, the hillbillies living off a diet of possums and roadkill and things like that, and squirrels. So JD, of all people, is someone who's well placed to understand the way in which these legends can really slander and libel and hurt a community. And the people on whose behalf he purports to speak right now have their schools closed down. They have their college closed down. They've had to cancel public events, a big annual cultural festival they have. It's going to cost their economy a lot. And as I note in the story, this is all about something that actually isn't happening. No one in Springfield seems to think it's happening. I didn't talk to one person who believed any of these stories. And what's even worse about this is that there are real issues related to immigration in Springfield. You've got a town of 50 to 60,000 people that's had 12 to 15,000 immigrants from a desperately poor country that is very culturally different from the United States move there. Of course, there are going to be issues associated with that. But rather than talking about the things that are actually going on in Springfield and the things that can be done to help to improve the situation for everybody, we're having this crazy conversation about dogs and cats. And these guys have the temerity to complain about people calling them weird when just they're obsessed with this weird cat eating story. And I have to imagine that someone who's not a political obsessive watching the debate and then just Trump out of nowhere starts shouting about they're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats. That had to be a really weird moment for normal people.
Yeah. So Kevin, in your new piece and entitled The Exotic Cat Eaters of Springfield, Ohio, a pretty long story about a thing that didn't happen. You write in part this: Springfield, like many similar cities, had been suffering from a declining population and economic stagnation when it joined a number of other Rust Belt cities in an effort to actively recruit immigrants to settle there. The town fathers may not have had 12,000 Haitians in mind, but that is what they got. And the results were pretty good. Contrary to the rhetoric you hear from Vance et al., unemployment went up, not down, and wages went up.
Employment went up,
and wages went up too. The case against the Haitians isn't that they are welfare malingas or cat eaters, or even that they are illegal immigrants who came here thanks to Joe Biden's lax border enforcement, which most of them aren't. The real issue is that by working overtime and investing in the community, they have made life more challenging for a reliable Trump voting constituency. Marginally employed white people on the dole.
Yeah.
He nails it. But folks, if people would stop trying to project themselves onto those they don't like or those they despise, and instead try to better themselves, instead try to look at the reality of things. I mean, for all of those who have this thing against immigrants and then would try to despise them in whatever manner they can, they should remember the distinct differences with the immigrants of today and the settlers of yester centuries. Because the immigrants of today are needed and magnanimous. And while there are issues based on politics that have prevent the appropriate or a better assimilation as we bring folks in, the reality is that those who came way before, they didn't come with this level of benevolence. The reason you see the people like Trump try to project criminality onto these immigrants, one wonders if they're trying to put onto the new immigrants what the centuries of immigration, meaning the settlers that came here to America in the first place, their behavior. The current immigrants' behavior is much, much different than the settlers who formed or that were the genesis of this country. Let's be real, folks. Let's stop projecting. Let's be the good people that most of us are.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number 1, subscribe to our channel. And number 2, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.